The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky surface of Kepler 442b as Lee Do-hyun walked through what looked like a simple mining operation. To any observer, especially the alien inspectors who visited monthly, this was just another struggling human colony trying to meet their quotas. The workers moved slowly, their equipment looked old, and the output reports always showed barely enough progress to avoid punishment. But Do-hyun knew the truth. Every piece of rock they pulled from the ground was carefully selected. Every tunnel they dug followed precise blueprints. Every worker here was part of the most important secret in human history. "Sir, the morning shift reports are ready," said Park Min-ji, approaching with a tablet that looked like standard mining data. Her official title was Terraforming Specialist, but she was actually one of the galaxy's best engineers. The numbers on her screen told a different story than what the aliens would see. Hidden in the boring reports about soil samples and mineral extraction were the real updates. Fusion core installation was ahead of schedule, weapon mounting points were ready, and the planetary engines were almost complete. Do-hyun nodded and took the tablet. 200 years ago, humanity had tried to fight the Galactic Council directly. They lost badly. The aliens forced them to sign the Treaty of Submission, which limited humans to 17 small worlds on the edge of nowhere. The Council thought they had broken human spirit forever. They were wrong. "How are the other sites doing?" Do-hyun asked quietly. Min-ji glanced around to make sure no one was listening. Kim Woo-sung reports that the training programs are going well. The new pilots think they're learning to operate mining vehicles, but they're actually learning to fly, the most powerful ships ever built. Woo-sung had been a military commander before the treaty. Now he pretended to be a civilian administrator, but he was secretly preparing the next generation of human warriors. His mining vehicle operators were actually training to pilot weapon systems the size of continents. The plan had started simple. Humans were allowed to mine and terraform their assigned worlds. The aliens didn't care what humans did as long as they delivered their quotas of raw materials. So humanity began the longest, most patient deception in galactic history. Every human world started the same way. They would set up what looked like normal mining operations. They would dig deep into the planet, supposedly looking for valuable metals. But instead of just mining, they were hollowing out entire worlds. The rock and metal they removed wasn't sent to alien worlds as tribute. It was being forged into something the galaxy had never seen before: planet-sized warships. Do-hyun walked to the edge of a cliff and looked down into what appeared to be a simple mining pit. But his trained eye could see the truth. The pit was actually the opening to a massive construction bay that went deep into the planet's core. Down there, in chambers the size of cities, human workers were installing engines powerful enough to move worlds. They were mounting weapons that could crack moons. They were building the tools of humanity's revenge. "The fusion plasma hybrid engines are working perfectly," Min-ji said, joining him at the cliff edge. "The test runs show we can break free from the star's gravity and reach faster than light speeds. A whole planet flying through space like a ship." It had taken decades to develop the technology. Humans had always been good at making the impossible possible, but this was beyond anything they had attempted before. They had to invent new types of engines, new weapons, new ways of thinking about space travel, and they had to do it all in secret, under the noses of aliens who thought humans were too broken to be dangerous. The hardest part wasn't the technology, it was the patience. Every day for 200 years, humans had to act defeated. They had to bow their heads when aliens visited. They had to pretend their mining operations were failing. They had to watch as other species in the galaxy lived, free while humans were treated like prisoners in their own worlds. But it was working. "Signal from Woo-sung," Min-ji said, checking her communicator. "The monthly inspection team is coming early this time. They'll be here in 2 hours." Do-hyun felt his heart rate increase but kept his face calm. "Send the usual signals. Everyone switches to cover operations. Make sure the real work is hidden." Within minutes, the mining operation transformed. The workers who had been installing weapon systems switched to moving ordinary rocks. The engineers working on planetary engines started repairing simple mining equipment. The fusion reactors that would soon power a world ship were covered with fake geological survey equipment. When the alien inspection team arrived, they saw exactly what they expected. A dozen tired-looking humans mining rocks on a barely habitable world. The lead inspector, a tall creature with gray skin and too many eyes, looked around with obvious boredom. "Output is still low," the inspector said through his translator. "The council is not pleased with human productivity." Do-hyun bowed his head respectfully. "We are doing our best, honored inspector. The mineral veins on this world are difficult to reach." The inspector made notes on his device. "Perhaps the council should consider relocating your people to more suitable worlds. There has been discussion about concentrating all humans in a smaller number of systems, for efficiency." The words sent a chill through Do-hyun, but he kept his expression neutral. "We serve the council's wisdom in all things." After the inspectors left, Do-hyun walked back to the cliff edge. The fake mining equipment was already being moved aside. Soon, the real work would continue. The work that would change everything. 17. Human worlds. Each one secretly transformed into a weapon of impossible power. Ships the size of planets, armed with weapons that could reshape reality itself. And the aliens suspected nothing. "How much longer?" Minji asked. Do-hyun looked up at the stars where, somewhere among them, the Galactic Council continued to believe they had tamed humanity forever. "Soon," he said. "Very soon the galaxy will learn what happens when you mistake human patience for weakness." Deep beneath their feet, in chambers carved from living rock, the first planet ship neared completion. Terra's vengeance would soon be ready to fly. And when it did, the age of human submission would end forever. The galaxy slept peacefully, unaware that 17 new gods of war were almost ready to wake. Captain Choi Hyuna stood on the command bridge of Terra's vengeance and watched her world prepare to fly. The bridge was built into what used to be the planet's highest mountain, with windows that looked out across continents that were now weapon platforms. Rivers had been rerouted to cool massive gun barrels. Forests hid missile silos the size of cities. Lakes were actually shield generators that could protect the entire world from attack. "All systems are ready, Captain," reported Kang Jisoo from her weapons station. Jisoo was responsible for coordinating weapons across all 17 planet ships, and her displays showed readouts that would have terrified the Galactic Council. Each number represented firepower beyond anything they could imagine. Hyuna had trained for this moment her entire life, though she had told everyone she was just a mining supervisor. The truth was that she had been chosen as humanity's first planet ship commander when she was 20 years old. For 15 years, she had studied every aspect of commanding a weapon the size of a world. "Engineering reports all engines ready," came another voice. The engines were built into the planet's core, massive fusion plasma reactors that could push an entire world through space faster than light. The engineering team had spent decades learning how to move a planet without tearing it apart. "Communications? Any word from the other worlds?" Hyuna asked. "All 16 other planet ships report ready for simultaneous activation," replied Yoon Tae-hyung from his station. Tae-hyung was officially listed as a communications officer, but he was actually humanity's top intelligence agent. His real job was intercepting alien communications and learning their plans. Yuna nodded. The plan required perfect timing. All 17 worlds had to break free from their star systems at exactly the same moment. If even one planet ship activated early, the aliens might realize what was happening and prepare defenses. "Captain, we're receiving a priority message from the Galactic Council," Tae-hyung said, his face going pale as he read his screen. "What is it?" "They're planning to relocate all humans to reservation worlds. Concentration camps in space. The order goes out next week." The bridge fell silent. Everyone had known this day might come, but hearing it confirmed made everything real. The Galactic Council wasn't content to just control humanity anymore. They wanted to cage them completely. "Well then," Hyuna said calmly, "I guess our timing is perfect. Send the activation signal to all worlds." The message went out through hidden communication channels that looked like routine mining reports. Across 17 star systems, human workers received the same coded phrase. The harvest begins now. On New Normandy, workers stopped pretending to mine and started powering up quantum torpedo launchers that could bend reality itself. On Steel, Garden, the fake geological surveys were abandoned as antimatter manufacturing facilities came online. On Ghost Harbor, stealth systems activated that could hide entire worlds from enemy sensors. Huna felt the deck vibrate under her feet as Terra's vengeance began to wake up. Deep in the planet's core, engines the size of continents roared to life. The artificial gravity systems adjusted to compensate for forces that no ship had ever experienced before. All stations report ready, Jisoo announced. Break us free, Huna ordered. What happened next had never been attempted in galactic history. An entire planet with its mountains and oceans and artificial atmosphere shuddered and began to rise from its orbit. The gravitational forces involved were enormous, but human engineering had planned for everything. Across the galaxy, alien monitoring stations detected impossible readings. Energy signatures that shouldn't exist. Gravitational distortions that made no sense. On 17 different worlds, their instruments screamed warnings about massive power sources activating simultaneously, but the aliens dismissed the readings as equipment failures. Humans were a broken species, confined to primitive mining operations. There was no way they could generate power readings like this. First jump in 10 seconds, announced the navigation officer. Huna watched through the bridge windows as stars began to move. Her planet was actually flying through space, its surface protected by shields that wrapped around the entire world like invisible armor. Jump initiated. Reality twisted around Terra's vengeance as it entered hyperspace. For a few seconds, the planet ship existed in the space between spaces, traveling faster than light while carrying billions of tons of rock, metal, and weapons. When they emerged, they were no longer in the same star system where Huna had been born. They were in deep space, far from any alien monitoring stations, ready to begin the next phase of the plan. Jump successful, reported navigation. All systems stable. The planet ship is fully operational. Weapons test, Huna ordered. Jisoo's fingers danced across her controls. On the planet's surface, a weapon emplacement the size of a city turned toward an abandoned asteroid field. The weapon looked like a mountain with a hole in the side, but it was actually a reality-warping cannon that could fold space itself. The weapon fired. The asteroid field didn't explode. It didn't melt or shatter. It simply ceased to exist, folded out of normal space-time and relocated to a pocket dimension where it could cause no harm. The demonstration lasted 3 seconds and erased rocks the size of moons. Weapon test successful, Jisoo reported with satisfaction. Signal from the other planet ships, Taehyung announced. All 16 worlds report successful activation and jump. The fleet is assembled. Huna looked at her tactical display, which now showed 17 moving planets in formation. Each one was armed with weapons that could reshape reality. Each one was home to millions of humans who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. Open a channel to all ships, she ordered. The faces of 16 other captains appeared on her screen. Men and women who had pretended to be farmers, miners, and administrators while secretly training to command the most powerful weapons in galactic history. Ladies and gentlemen, Huna said, humanity is no longer hiding. It's time to remind the galaxy what happens when you try to cage a species that was born to reach for the stars. The planet ships began to move, 17 worlds flying through space in perfect formation. Their destination was the heart of Galactic Council space, where aliens who thought they ruled the galaxy were about to learn they had made the biggest mistake in their species' history. Behind them, 17 star systems that had once held human mining colonies were now empty. But ahead of them lay the chance to rewrite the rules of galactic civilization forever. The age of human submission was over. The age of human dominance had begun. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center of the Galactic Council's emergency session, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically as he dismissed the reports flooding in from across the galaxy. The massive chamber, built to hold representatives from hundreds of worlds, buzzed with confused voices speaking dozens of languages. Impossible readings, Veltar declared, his translator making his voice boom across the chamber. 17 energy signatures moving faster than light. Planets leaving their orbits. These humans have broken our monitoring equipment with their primitive mining operations. High Counselor Nexus Prime, a creature that looked like living crystal, pulsed with concerned colors. The readings are consistent across all our monitoring stations, Ambassador. Something is happening in human space. Veltar's laugh was harsh. Human space? Those defeated creatures couldn't build a proper spaceship if we gave them the blueprints. They mine rocks and grow food. That's all they're capable of. In the diplomatic gallery, Bei Suhyun sat quietly among the other species representatives, her face showing nothing while she listened to every word. Officially, she was Earth's diplomatic observer, allowed to attend council sessions but never to speak. In reality, she was one of humanity's best intelligence officers, and everything she heard was being transmitted back to the approaching fleet. The chamber's main screen lit up with a tactical display showing the galaxy's defensive positions. Red dots marked the locations of the Council's military fleets, scattered across hundreds of star systems. The display showed over 50,000 ships, the largest military force in galactic history. Even if the humans have somehow acquired military technology, Veltar continued, what could they possibly do against the combined fleets of 300 worlds? We have crushed species far more advanced than they could ever hope to become. Su Yun touched her wrist device, sending a coded signal that looked like adjusting her universal translator. In reality, she was transmitting the fleet positions to Captain Yuna and the other planet ship commanders. Every ship location, every weapon specification, every defensive plan the Council was discussing. I recommend we send a disciplinary force, Veltar announced. 1,000 ships should be more than enough to remind these humans of their place. We can destroy their entire species in a single afternoon if necessary. Several council members made sounds of agreement. The representative from the hegemony worlds, a species that had conquered dozens of systems before joining the council, spoke up. The humans tried to rebel once before. Perhaps we were too merciful in simply defeating them. This time we should ensure they never have the chance to cause trouble again. Nexus Prime's crystal body flickered with uncertain patterns. What about the readings from our border stations? 3 of them have gone completely silent in the past hour. Veltar waved dismissively. Equipment failures. Or perhaps the humans are jamming communications with their mining equipment. It doesn't matter. Nothing they could possibly have built could threaten even a single council ship. But even as he spoke, more reports were coming in. Long-range sensors were detecting massive objects moving through hyperspace toward Council territory. The objects were too large to be ships, but they were definitely artificial, and they were moving in perfect formation. Suhyun felt her heart race as she recognized what the reports were describing. The planet ships were ahead of schedule. Humanity's revenge was coming faster than anyone had expected. Sir, a council technician interrupted the session, his voice shaking. We're receiving a transmission from the border region. It's from one of our reconnaissance ships. Put it through, Nexus Prime ordered. The voice that filled the chamber was barely recognizable as belonging to one of the Council's most experienced ship captains. Council Control, this is Captain ZXHY of the reconnaissance vessel Swift Strike. I don't know how to report this. We've found the humans, but they're not what we expected. Static filled the channel for a moment before the captain continued. They're not flying ships. They're flying worlds. Actual planets moving through space faster than light. The energy readings are, by all the gods of space, one of them is the size of our home world, and it's covered in weapons. The council chamber fell completely silent. That's impossible, Veltar said, but his voice had lost its confident tone. Captain ZXHY, can you be more specific? Nexus Prime asked. 17 planets in formation, sir. Each one is armed with weapons larger than our biggest battleships. I've never seen anything like this. They're asking us to withdraw immediately or face the consequences. What are your orders? Before anyone could answer, the transmission cut to static. Veltar turned to his aide. Send the full border fleet. 50 ships should be enough to handle whatever tricks the humans are using. But Soo-hyun knew it wouldn't be enough. She had seen the weapon specifications, had watched the test firings on empty asteroids. 50 ships, 500 ships, even 5,000 ships wouldn't be enough to stop what was coming. 2 hours later, the reports started coming in from the border fleet. Ships were disappearing from their tactical displays one by one. Not destroyed in the usual sense. Their debris would have been detectable. They were simply ceasing to exist, removed from reality by weapons that could fold space itself. Impossible. Veltar kept repeating, but his forearms were shaking now. Humans can't do this, they're a defeated species. They mine rocks. The main tactical display updated, showing the positions of the 17 planet ships as they advanced through Council space. Each one was larger than most moons, and the energy signatures they gave off were beyond anything in the Council's experience. They're heading for the core systems, a technician reported. At their current speed, they'll reach our most heavily defended worlds within days. Nexus Prime's crystalline body pulsed with rapid, panicked colors. Send the Grand Armada, every ship, every species, all of them. The order went out across the galaxy. 500,000 ships received the same message. Proceed immediately to the core systems to face an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. But as Soo-hyun sat in the diplomatic gallery, she knew the truth that none of the council members could accept. The humans weren't coming to fight a battle. They were coming to win a war that had been planned for 2 centuries. The greatest military force in galactic history was about to discover that sometimes the species you think you've defeated is just learning how to fight better. And when 17 planets full of humans who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment finally had their chance for revenge, the galaxy itself would shake. Lim Ji-won stood in the Fleet Command Center built into the northern continent of Terra's vengeance, watching tactical displays that showed the approaching Grand Armada. 500,000 ships from dozens of species, all converging on the 17 planet ships with weapons that had kept galactic peace for centuries. To most people, it would have looked hopeless. The human fleet was outnumbered by more than 25,000 to 1, but Ji-won had spent her entire life studying these exact numbers, planning for this exact moment. She smiled as she watched the enemy fleet approach. They still don't understand what they're facing, she said to Song Min-ho, whose image appeared on her communication screen from his command post on Iron Symphony. Min-ho's planet ship was the fleet's pure assault specialist, a world converted entirely into weapons platforms. Their largest ship is smaller than our smallest weapon emplacement, Min-ho replied. They're bringing swords to fight against gods. The Grand Armada spread across several star systems as it moved toward the human fleet. Their formation was perfect according to traditional galactic warfare. Layers of defensive screens, heavy battleships in the center, fast attack craft on the flanks. It was a formation that had won 1,000 battles against conventional enemies, but the humans were not conventional enemies. Begin network synchronization, Ji-won ordered. Across all 17 planet ships, weapon systems that had been built to work together activated. Each world ship was powerful enough to destroy fleets on its own. But when networked together, they became something unprecedented in galactic history. 17 planets fighting as a single entity, with coordination no traditional fleet could match. All weapon networks synchronized, reported Jang Yuna from her position on Steel Garden. Yuna commanded the planetary defense systems for the entire fleet, managing shields and point defense weapons across 17 worlds simultaneously. The first contact came at the edge of the Seven Sun system. The Grand Armada's advanced scouts encountered Ghost Harbor, the human fleet's stealth specialist. To the alien sensors, Ghost Harbor appeared to be empty space until it was too late. The planet ship decloaked directly in the middle of the scout formation. Weapons that looked like mountain ranges opened fire, and the scouts discovered that their most advanced shields couldn't stop weapons designed to reshape reality itself. First engagement complete, Min-ho reported. 200 enemy ships eliminated, 0 casualties on our side. But the real battle was just beginning. The Grand Armada's main force arrived in perfect formation, their commanders confident that sheer numbers would win the day. They had never lost a battle where they outnumbered the enemy by more than 1,000 to 1. Admiral Veltar's flagship, the Eternal Glory, led the charge. It was the largest ship in the Grand Armada, 5 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack planets. As it approached the human fleet, Veltar was probably feeling confident. He shouldn't have been. "All ships prepare for coordinated strike," Jiwan announced. What happened next had never been attempted in galactic warfare. The 17 planet ships spread across multiple star systems, positioned themselves at precise coordinates, and prepared to fire simultaneously. Their targeting computers were linked across impossible distances, creating a single weapon system that spanned dozens of light years. Reality anchors deployed, Yuna reported. Ghost Harbor activated its most terrifying weapon, devices that could temporarily freeze local space-time, locking enemy ships in position so they couldn't dodge or retreat. The entire Grand Armada found itself unable to move, trapped in a bubble of frozen space. "All ships report firing solutions locked," Jiwan said calmly. "Fire." 17 worlds opened fire at the same moment. The weapons weren't lasers or missiles, or plasma cannons. They were reality-warping devices that could fold space itself, temporal disruptors that could age enemy ships into dust in seconds, and quantum destroyers that could make entire fleets cease to exist by removing them from the timeline. The Grand Armada, the largest military force in galactic history, lasted exactly 14 seconds. 500,000 ships, reduced to empty space in less than a quarter of a minute. Not destroyed in the traditional sense, there wasn't even debris left behind. They had simply been erased from existence by weapons that treated the laws of physics as suggestions. "Engagement complete," Minho reported, his voice showing no emotion. "Enemy fleet eliminated. All human ships report 0 damage." In the silence that followed, Jiwan looked at her displays showing the empty space where the Grand Armada had been. 500,000 ships crewed by millions of beings from across the galaxy, gone in an instant. "Begin rescue operations," she ordered. "Rescue operations?" asked Captain Hyuna from Terra's Vengeance. "We erased their ships," Jiwan explained. "But we transported their crews to safety first. Check your cargo holds. We've got about 3 million prisoners who are probably very confused right now." It was true. In the seconds before firing, the human ships had used transporters to beam every living being off the enemy vessels. The crews of the Grand Armada were alive and unharmed, sitting in holding areas aboard the planet ships trying to understand how their entire fleet had vanished around them. "Why?" asked Yuna. "They came here to destroy us." "Because we're better than they are," Jiwan replied. "We could have killed them all, but we chose not to. That's the difference between us and the Galactic Council. They rule through fear. We'll rule through strength tempered with mercy." The aftermath of the Battle of Seven Suns spread across the galaxy in hours. The Grand Armada, invincible for centuries, had been eliminated by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive miners. Worlds that had relied on Council protection suddenly realized that protection no longer existed, but instead of conquest and destruction, the human fleet began doing something unexpected. They started fixing things. Iron Symphony moved to a world that had been strip-mined by Council corporations, leaving it a barren wasteland. In 72 hours, Minho's weapons platforms converted into terraforming arrays, and the dead world bloomed with new life. Mountains rose where there had been craters. Rivers flowed where there had been toxic waste. Forests grew where nothing had lived for centuries. "The other worlds are asking for our help," reported Yuna. "They want us to repair the damage the Council has done to their systems." Jiwan nodded. "Send teams to every world that requests assistance. Show them what human technology can build, not just what it can destroy." The 17 planet ships spread across the galaxy, no longer weapons of war but tools of reconstruction. Each world they visited was transformed, not conquered. The humans didn't demand tribute or submission. They offered partnership, but they also made one thing very clear. The age of species being treated as inferior because they came from smaller worlds or had less advanced technology was over. The galaxy now had new guardians, and these guardians had both the power to destroy anything that threatened peace and the wisdom to create wonders beyond imagination. The Galactic Council's reign of arrogant supremacy had ended in 14 seconds. What came next would be something the galaxy had never seen before. An empire built not on fear, but on the simple idea that every species deserved the chance to reach for the stars. President Han Seojin stood on the command deck of New Earth, looking out at a sight that would have been impossible just months ago. The Galactic Council chambers, built to accommodate thousands of representatives from hundreds of worlds, were surrounded by 17 planet ships hanging in space like new moons around the ancient station. But these weren't conquerors positioning themselves to destroy a defeated enemy. They were guardians, come to offer a new kind of leadership to a galaxy that had forgotten what true cooperation looked like. Representatives from 400 worlds have requested to attend the assembly, reported Director Oh Seulgi from her position at the communications station. Seulgi had designed the post-war reconstruction plans, turning weapons of unimaginable destruction into tools for building better worlds. And how many are asking for our help with terraforming or reconstruction? Seojun asked. All of them, Seulgi replied with a smile. It seems that once you show people you can turn dead worlds into gardens in 3 days, they become very interested in friendship. Captain Lee Ji-hoon's voice came over the communication system from his ship, Mercy's Dawn, which was positioned near the old council homeworld. The demonstration project is ready, Mr. President. We can begin transformation of the military depot whenever you give the word. Seojun nodded. The old council military depot was a perfect example of everything that had been wrong with galactic civilization. It was a barren, lifeless rock where the council had built weapons factories and training facilities for their fleets. Millions of beings had been forced to work there in terrible conditions, and the planet's surface had been poisoned by centuries of weapons testing. Today, it would become something beautiful. Begin the demonstration, Seojun ordered. On screens, throughout the council chambers, representatives from hundreds of worlds watched as Mercy's Dawn positioned itself above the depot world. The planet ship looked peaceful from space, its surface covered in what appeared to be forests and lakes and cities. But those forests hid terraforming arrays more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever imagined. The transformation began slowly. Clouds formed in the depot world's toxic atmosphere as the planet ship's atmospheric processors began their work. The poisoned air was cleaned and refreshed in real time, becoming breathable for the first time in centuries. Then the real magic started. Mountains began to rise from the planet's scarred surface, pushed up by carefully controlled tectonic forces. Rivers of clean water flowed from new springs, cutting channels through valleys that were forming as the representatives watched. Forests sprouted from soil that had been dead for generations, growing with impossible speed as the planet ship's life-seeding arrays worked their miracles. In 12 hours, the barren depot world had become a garden paradise. Cities rose from the ground, designed to work in harmony with the new ecosystems. Harbors formed along new coastlines where beings from any species could live and work together. The council chambers were completely silent as the representatives stared at the screens showing the transformed world. "This is what human technology can do," Seojun announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "For 2 centuries you believed we were broken, defeated, capable of nothing but mining rocks and growing food. You were wrong." He walked to the center of the chamber where the High Counselor's podium had once stood. "But we didn't reveal our true capabilities to conquer you. We revealed them to offer you something better than the fear-based system you've lived under for so long." A representative from the hegemony world stood up, her translator making her words audible to all. "What do you want from us? What tribute do you demand? What systems will you claim as your own?" Seojun smiled. "We don't want your tribute. We don't claim your systems. We offer you partnership. Join us in building something better than either of our species could achieve alone." The questions came fast after that. How could they trust humans after what had happened to the Grand Armada? How could any species feel safe when 17 planet ships could eliminate entire fleets in seconds? What guarantee was there that humanity wouldn't become the same kind of tyrants the Council had been? "You want guarantees?" Seojun asked. "Then look around you." He gestured toward the viewing ports, where the 17 planet ships hung peacefully in space. We have the power to destroy any world that opposes us. We could have eliminated all of you and taken over the galaxy by force. Instead, we saved the crews of every ship we destroyed. We're offering to help repair the damage that centuries of council rule have caused to your worlds. We're asking you to join us as equals, not subjects. Captain Jihoon's voice came over the speakers again. Mr. President, the Depot world requests permission to host our first interspecies colony. They want to build a city where beings from all worlds can live and work together. Granted, Seojun replied. Let it be the first of many. Over the following days, the representatives saw demonstration after demonstration of what humanity could offer. Worlds that had been strip-mined were restored to their original beauty. Species that had been forced into poverty by council taxation were offered advanced technology to improve their lives. Star systems that had been isolated were connected by new transportation networks built by the planet ships. But the most important demonstration came when a representative from one of the galaxy's smallest species stood up in the chamber. Her people had been considered lesser beings by the council, forced to live on reservation worlds and forbidden from advancing technologically. What about us? She asked. We have nothing to offer you. No resources, no advanced technology, no military strength. Why would you want us as partners? Seojun walked over to her section of the chamber and looked directly at her. Because every species has something unique to contribute. Your people are artists, aren't they? Musicians and poets and storytellers. She nodded, confused. The galaxy needs beauty as much as it needs technology, Seojun explained. We can build worlds, but you can fill them with wonder. That's not a lesser contribution. It's essential. The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives began to understand what humanity was really offering. Not conquest, but cooperation. Not dominance, but partnership. The chance for every species to contribute their unique strengths to something larger than any of them could achieve alone. The final vote was unanimous. 400 worlds agreed to join the new Galactic Federation, with humanity serving as both protector and partner rather than ruler. As the assembly ended, Seojun walked to the observation deck of New Earth and looked out at the stars. Children from dozens of species were already playing in the parks built into the planet ship's surface, their parents working together in laboratories and workshops, designing the next generation of world ships. Director Sulgi joined him at the viewing. Port. The first new planet ship is already under construction, a joint project between 12 different species. They want to call it Hope's Dawn. Seojun smiled. Perfect. And the others? 17 more worlds have volunteered to be transformed into planet ships. But not weapons this time. Pure exploration and colonization vessels. They want to carry mixed crews to the galaxy's edge to find new worlds for all our species to share. The galaxy no longer slept in ignorance, dreaming small, dreams of territorial control and species superiority. It was awake and dreaming bigger than ever before, of worlds where any being could find a home, of technologies that served life instead of destroying it, of a future where the phrase lesser species would be forgotten forever. And in the depths of space, where new planet ships were already taking shape, human children worked alongside young beings from 100 different worlds, learning that the greatest strength wasn't in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to build something worth protecting. The age of human dominance had never really begun. Instead, the age of galactic cooperation had started, guided by the species that had learned the most important lesson of all. True power wasn't about making others fear you. It was about making them glad you existed.